You're 48, Derek. The tech industry doesn't want dinosaurs. Trevor Manning leaned back in his leather chair, that smug grin spreading across his face like he'd just delivered the punchline to the world's cruelest joke. He was about to find out how wrong he was. I set my company laptop on his desk with a soft thud. Then the manila folder. 8 years of building truck flow dynamics from the ground up, and this bastard thought I was done. Good luck finding another job at your age in this market, he continued, flipping open the folder to scan my resignation letter. That same chuckle I had heard 1,000 times before, the sound of a man who'd built his entire career on other people's work. I didn't flinch, just stood there in my worn jeans and polo shirt, hands at my sides, looking him dead in the eye. Meanwhile, he's sitting there in his $3,000 suit, fresh from another LinkedIn post about innovative leadership with some stock photo of hands stacked together. My name is Derek Paulson, senior software architect, divorced father of 2. And for 8 years, I'd been the brain behind every system that made truck flow dynamics worth $200 million, while this fraud took all the credit. The tech industry moves fast, Trevor said, leaning forward like he was doing me some kind of favor. Companies want young blood, fresh ideas. You really think anyone's going to hire a divorced single dad with outdated skills? Face it, guys your age should focus on mentoring young talent, not trying to be rock stars. That familiar knife twist. He'd been using my divorce against me for 3 years now. Subtle comments about lifestyle stability and family commitments whenever promotion discussions came up. Never mind that I'd been busting my ass working 60-hour weeks to pay child support while he lived in his Cherry Hills Village mansion with his real estate agent wife, driving his Tesla Model S to work every morning. That's when I opened my mouth for the first time since walking in. I've already been hired, I said, voice steady as bedrock. Apex Logistics Solutions. Principal architect. 140,000 base plus equity. His smile dropped like a stone. Apex? His face went pale. You can't do that. We have non-compete agreements, NDAs. I shook my head slowly. Check your records, Trevor. I never signed either. You said you didn't want to scare off talent with excessive paperwork. Remember? The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. He was blinking fast now, probably running through every conversation we'd ever had about company policies. Besides, I added, picking up my folder, I think you're confusing me with someone else. I was never your talent. I was your safety net. The unraveling started 2 years ago when Sarah packed the last box on a Tuesday morning in March. 18 years of marriage, reduced to cardboard containers and a custody agreement that gave me alternating weekends with Jake and Emma. It's not about the hours you work, she said, taping up a box marked Kitchen Sarah's. It's that you care more about solving computer problems than talking to your own family. She wasn't wrong. I'd been hiding in code for years, staying late at the office, working weekends on algorithm optimizations. Easier than dealing with the slow death of our marriage. Easier than admitting I felt like a stranger in my own house. The divorce settlement hit me hard. Child support, splitting assets, suddenly paying for 2 households on a $95,000 salary that Trevor had kept frozen for 4 years running while he got promoted based on systems I'd designed. I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Aurora. Nothing fancy, but close enough to the kids' school for pickup duty. My Honda Civic 2018 replaced the family SUV. The basement became my workshop where I built model trains on quiet Sunday nights when Jake and Emma were at their mom's. Budget constraints, Trevor would say during my annual reviews. But you're such a valuable contributor, Derek. We really depend on your stability. Stability. Code word for, we know you can't leave because you need the health insurance and steady paycheck for child support. But it was 6 months later when everything really exploded. I wasn't supposed to be in the conference room that Thursday afternoon. I'd come back from lunch early to grab my phone charger when I heard voices through the half-open door. Company all-hands meeting was supposed to start at 2 p.m., but Trevor was already in there with the board, doing his usual song and dance. The real breakthrough, he was saying, tapping his laser pointer against the projection screen, was our predictive routing algorithm. Revolutionary stuff. We're talking about a 23% improvement in delivery efficiency across all major routes. I froze in the hallway. That wasn't just my work. That was my baby. 15 months of late nights in my apartment, weekend coding sessions while the kids were at their mom's, debugging sessions that went until 3 a.m. while I survived on gas station coffee and determination. I'd built that algorithm from scratch, tested it against every edge case I could think of, refined it until it was bulletproof. The beauty of the system, Trevor continued, is how it learns from real-time traffic patterns and weather data to optimize route selection. Took me almost 2 years to crack the mathematical model, but the results speak for themselves. Took me almost 2 years. My hands started shaking. Not from nerves, but from pure controlled rage. He didn't just steal credit. He didn't even understand what he was talking about. I'd had to explain constraint optimization to him 3 times just so he could approve the project budget. Had to draw flow charts on whiteboards like he was a freshman CS student. I backed away from the door without making a sound. Drove straight home to my apartment in Aurora, sat in my Honda in the parking lot for 20 minutes, just breathing. Jake was inside working on robotics projects for his high school team. Emma was studying for midterms at CU Boulder, majoring in computer science because she said she wanted to build cool stuff like Dad. That night, I started a folder on my personal cloud drive. No labels, no obvious names. Just a random string of characters that meant nothing to anyone but me. XK9M_backup_2023. And I started collecting everything. First thing I did was screenshot every email where Trevor asked me to dumb down my technical explanations for board presentations. There were dozens of them over the years. Messages like, "Can you simplify the algorithm overview? I need to present this to non-technical stakeholders and break this down for me. What's the bottom line impact? I don't need all the mathematical details." Then I started recording voice memos during my late-night coding sessions. Sitting in my apartment at 11 p.m., talking through my problem-solving process out loud while I worked on my personal laptop. Time-stamped audio of me working through the mathematical models, explaining constraint optimization theories to myself, debugging edge cases that kept me up until 2 a.m. March 15th, 11:47 p.m. Working on the weight distribution problem for multi-stop routes. The issue is that standard algorithms treat each delivery point as independent, but real-world logistics has cascading effects. If you optimize Route A without considering how it affects driver availability for Route B, pure documentation of the creative process, proof that I was the one doing the actual thinking while Trevor was at home posting motivational quotes on LinkedIn. But the real gold mine was in our company's version control system. Every code commit had my username attached. Every breakthrough, every bug fix, every optimization, all traced back to my login credentials with timestamps showing I was working at midnight, 2 a.m. during lunch breaks. Trevor's name appeared exactly 0 times in the development logs. 3 weeks into my collection phase, I discovered something interesting buried in our employee handbook. Section 7.3. Intellectual property developed during personal time using non-company equipment may be classified as independent research, subject to review. Vague language, probably put there by some lawyer who never thought it would matter. I spent the next month working exclusively on my personal laptop during evenings and weekends, rebuilt portions of the routing algorithm from scratch, improved the efficiency by another 8%, documented every step. All on my own time, my own equipment, in my apartment while Jake worked on robotics projects at the kitchen table and Emma called for help with her data structures homework. Then I did something Trevor would never see coming. I wrote up a routine policy clarification for the intellectual property section. Clean language, nothing flashy. Just enough to protect personal research contributions developed outside company hours using personal equipment. Walked it into Trevor's office on a Tuesday morning with my usual stack of status reports. Legal wants us to update our IP compliance for vendor contracts, I told him, setting the document on his desk. Pretty standard stuff. Just needs your signature for the file. He didn't even read it. Just scribbled his signature while scrolling through LinkedIn on his phone, probably looking at the latest motivational quote he could repost about disruptive innovation or paradigm shifts. Thanks for handling that, Derek. You always take care of the boring details. Boring details. That signature just gave me legal ownership of half the improvements to our core system. By month 4 of my collection, I had everything backed up in 3 separate locations. Encrypted files on 2 different cloud services, plus a physical drive I kept in a safety deposit box at a downtown Denver bank. Ironclad timestamps, voice recordings, email chains, and legal protection I'd gotten him to sign himself. I even consulted with my lawyer, the guy I'd used for the divorce 3 years back, and had him review everything. "You're clean," he told me over coffee near the courthouse. "No legal exposure. The policy changes you got signed actually protect you better than most developers ever manage. I just needed the right opportunity to use it all." That opportunity came at the Colorado Tech Expo in downtown Denver. I was manning our booth, basically standing there like a prop in my company polo shirt while Trevor worked the crowd in his tailored suit. Tesla car keys prominently displayed on the table, when I spotted her across the convention floor. Rachel Torres, Vice President of Engineering at Apex Logistics Solutions, our biggest competitor. Former Air Force engineer who'd built Apex from a startup into a major player. I'd been following her career for years, reading her technical papers, respecting her work from a distance. She recognized me first. "You're Derek Paulson, right?" she said, walking up to our booth with the confidence of someone who'd commanded military engineering teams. "I've been wondering who actually builds the systems your CEO keeps talking about at these conferences." Trevor was 20 feet away, deep in conversation with some potential investors, gesturing wildly about disruptive innovation and next-generation paradigms. I looked at Rachel, then back at him, then made a decision. "I build most of it," I said quietly. "Most of it? All of it." He puts his name on the presentations. That got her attention. We talked for 20 minutes by the coffee station. Real tech talk. No fluff, no buzzwords. Distributed computing challenges, scalability issues, optimization trade-offs. The kind of conversation I hadn't had with anyone at my own company in years. She knew her stuff, asked questions that only someone with deep engineering background would think to ask. "I've been trying to figure out how TruckFlow's routing system works for 2 years, she said. "Our engineers keep hitting walls trying to reverse engineer the logic patterns." "That's because the core architecture uses layered constraint optimization," I said. "Most people try to solve it with standard pathfinding algorithms, but that doesn't account for real-world variables like driver hours of service regulations, vehicle capacity constraints, and dynamic priority adjustments." When she handed me her business card, she looked me straight in the eye. "If you ever want to work somewhere that values the actual builders instead of the talking heads, give me a call. We need a principal architect, and from what I can see, you're completely wasted here." I didn't call Rachel right away. Spent 2 weeks thinking it through, running scenarios, checking my legal position one more time. That weekend, I took Jake and Emma hiking in Rocky Mountain National Park. Told them I might be changing jobs soon, getting a better opportunity. Emma, 19 and studying computer science at CU Boulder, was excited. "Dad, you've been talking about those algorithms for years. Maybe you'll finally get credit for your work." Jake, 16 and captain of his high school robotics team, was more practical. "Does it pay better?" "Because Mom says college is expensive." Smart kids. They'd inherited my problem-solving instincts, just applied them to different challenges. That night I called Rachel. We met at a brew pub near Coors Field. No corporate setting, no formal presentation, just 2 engineers talking shop over beer and nachos. "I looked into your background after the expo," she said, cutting straight to business. "Your fingerprints are all over TruckFlow's patent filings. 8 different algorithms, all listing you as primary inventor. 8, actually. They missed one in the filing." She smiled. "We've been trying to figure out how TruckFlow's routing system works for 2 years. Our engineers keep hitting walls trying to reverse engineer the logic patterns." For the next hour, I walked her through the theoretical framework, not revealing proprietary code, just explaining the approach. The mathematical models, the decision trees, the machine learning components that adapted to traffic patterns and delivery constraints. By the end of the conversation, she leaned back in her chair and said, "Principal architect, 140,000 base plus equity that vests over 4 years. Your own team of 22 engineers, full development authority, and will cover all legal costs if your current employer tries anything stupid." I thought about my apartment rent, Jake's college fund, Emma's tuition bills. Thought about 8 years of watching Trevor take credit for my work while keeping my salary frozen at $95,000. I shook her hand. "When do I start?" "Soon as you're ready to walk away from that place." I didn't quit immediately. Spent another month preparing everything. Transferred all my personal files to external drives, cleaned up my documentation, made sure every timestamp was clear and defensible. More importantly, I stopped doing anything extra. No more late nights fixing Trevor's presentation slides. No more weekend debugging sessions. No more urgent patches to keep our systems running smooth. I just did my basic job requirements and went home to coach Jake's robotics team and help Emma with her data structures homework. The cracks started showing within 2 weeks. Client complaints started trickling in. Minor system glitches that I would normally catch and fix before anyone noticed. Optimization routines running inefficiently because I wasn't there to babysit them. The predictive algorithm started producing suboptimal routes because it needed constant fine-tuning that only I knew how to do. Trevor called me into his office on a Thursday morning, looking stressed. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, and I could see 3 empty Red Bull cans in his trash. Derek, we're seeing some performance issues with the routing system. Nothing major, just some efficiency drops. Can you take a look? I'll add it to my task list, I said. Should be able to get to it next week sometime. Next week? This is pretty high priority. Walmart's operations team is asking questions. I've got my regular assignments to finish first. You said last month during my performance review that I needed to focus on documented deliverables instead of ad hoc troubleshooting. His jaw tightened, but he couldn't argue. He had said exactly that, trying to justify another year without a raise. The final piece fell into place when I saw the speaker list for the Rocky Mountain Supply Chain Summit. Trevor Manning, CEO of Truck Flow Dynamics, giving the opening keynote on innovation in predictive logistics, the future of supply chain optimization. I registered myself as an attendee that same day. Rocky Mountain Supply Chain Summit, grand ballroom at the Marriott downtown, packed with about 1,200 industry professionals. I sat in the back row, arms crossed, wearing jeans and a button-down shirt while everyone else was in suits. Rachel Torres was 5 rows ahead of me, part of Apex's delegation. Trevor took the stage in his expensive charcoal suit, the one his wife probably picked out during their last shopping trip to Cherry Creek Mall. His MBA from CU Boulder prominently displayed in his bio slide, along with photos from various conferences where he'd presented my work. He opened strong. Generic corporate speak about pushing boundaries and leveraging data for smarter solutions. Could have been any CEO at any tech conference. The audience was polite but not particularly engaged. Then came the technical section. Our breakthrough predictive routing algorithm, Trevor said, clicking to a slide with my mathematical models displayed in bright blue text, represents a fundamental shift in how we approach logistics optimization. I felt my hands clench. Those were my equations, my variable notations, my work. The system uses advanced machine learning to predict traffic patterns, weather impacts, and delivery windows with 97% accuracy, he continued. The development process took nearly 2 years of intensive research and modeling to crack the underlying mathematical framework. A hand shot up from the third row. Can you walk us through the statistical framework? What type of regression models are you using for the prediction layer? Trevor smiled. The same confident expression I'd seen him practice in the bathroom mirror before board meetings. It's a hybrid approach. We combine multiple methodologies to achieve optimal results. Non-answer. Pure bullshit disguised as technical expertise. Another question. How do you handle the computational complexity when scaling across multiple regions? The O of n squared problem gets pretty ugly with large data sets. We've developed proprietary optimization techniques that allow for real-time processing at scale. More generic garbage. I could see people in the audience starting to shift in their seats. These were smart people, engineers, researchers, logistics professionals who knew the difference between real technical content and marketing speak. A woman near the front stood up. I recognized her. Dr. Sarah Chen from Colorado State University's Logistics Research Department. She'd published papers on constraint optimization that I had referenced in my own work. I've reviewed your published papers, she said, voice cutting through the room like a blade. The mathematical models you're showing don't match the algorithms described in your technical documentation. The constraint optimization functions are fundamentally different. Trevor's smile faltered for the first time. Well, we've made several iterations since those publications. Which specific iterations? The base optimization function I'm looking at shouldn't converge with those input parameters. The mathematics don't work. Silence. Trevor was staring at the slide, probably trying to remember what any of those symbols meant. I'd drawn those equations on his whiteboard 6 months ago, explaining each variable 3 times before he nodded and said he understood. I think, Doctor, Chen continued, someone who actually built these systems should explain how they work. That's when I stood up. The room went quiet. All 1,200 pairs of eyes turned toward the back row where some guy in jeans and a polo shirt was getting to his feet. I can answer that, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Trevor's face went white. He knew that voice. Knew exactly who was about to walk down that aisle. I walked past rows of executives and engineers, straight to the front of the room, took the microphone from Trevor's hand without asking permission. He stepped aside like a ghost, probably already calculating how fast he could get to the parking garage. The optimization framework uses a multi-layered constraint satisfaction approach, I began, looking out at the audience instead of at Trevor. The base layer handles route optimization using a modified Dijkstra algorithm with dynamic weight adjustments. The prediction layer runs parallel processing with weighted historical data and real-time traffic feeds. Nods from the crowd. Real engagement for the first time all morning. The reason the mathematical models look inconsistent, I continued, glancing at Dr. Chen, is because the published papers only show the simplified version for patent filing purposes. The actual production system uses dynamic constraint relaxation that adjusts parameters based on delivery priority, vehicle capacity, driver hours of service regulations, and real-time weather impacts. I walked them through the real architecture. Not corporate buzzwords, not marketing speak. Just clean technical explanation of how the system actually worked. The mathematics, the logic trees, the machine learning components, the decision frameworks I'd built during those late nights in my apartment while Trevor was posting motivational quotes on LinkedIn. The breakthrough isn't just in the algorithm, I said, warming up to the topic I'd been passionate about for 8 years. It's in understanding that logistics optimization is fundamentally a human problem disguised as a mathematical one. Drivers have families, trucks break down, weather changes, customers change their minds. The system has to be smart enough to handle chaos, not just calculate optimal routes. When I finished explaining the real technical architecture, the room erupted in applause. Not polite conference clapping, real recognition from people who understood what they'd just heard. I handed the microphone back to Trevor and walked off the stage. He didn't say another word, just stood there in his expensive suit, exposed as a fraud in front of 1,200 industry professionals. The conference ended in chaos. Reporters, industry bloggers, LinkedIn influencers. Everyone wanted to know who I was and what had just happened. Someone had recorded the whole thing on their phone. By the time I reached the parking garage, the video was already being shared in tech industry Slack channels. I didn't stick around for interviews. Just drove straight to Apex's office in my Honda Civic, past Trevor's abandoned Tesla in the hotel parking lot. Rachel was waiting for me with a cup of coffee and a contract. That was either brilliant or completely insane, she said. Maybe both. Within 48 hours, the industry blogs were running headlines like "Truckflow CEO exposed by real engineer and the architect behind predictive logistics speaks out." The video from the conference hit 50,000 views in the supply chain tech community. Comments ranged from "I knew something was fishy about their presentations" to "This guy just nuked his former CEO from orbit." People who'd been in the industry for years started sharing their own stories about presentations that hadn't made technical sense. Trevor tried damage control, posted a LinkedIn statement about collaborative innovation and team efforts with a stock photo of diverse hands stacked together. The comments section was brutal. Didn't matter. 3 major clients, Walmart, Amazon, and FedEx, canceled their contracts that week. All demanded technical audits of their systems. When Truckflow couldn't produce anyone who understood the core algorithms, the contracts evaporated. The board called an emergency meeting on Friday afternoon. Trevor was out by Monday morning, along with his assistant and half the marketing team. By Tuesday, Trevor's LinkedIn profile had been updated to "seeking new opportunities in executive leadership." The motivational quotes stopped. The conference speaking invitations were withdrawn. His wife, apparently unaware of how precarious their financial situation had become, filed for divorce 3 weeks later when the reality of his unemployment hit their mortgage payments. The Tesla got repossessed. The Cherry Hills Village house went on the market. Trevor moved into a studio apartment in Lakewood and started posting resume updates that conveniently omitted his last 2 years at Truckflow. But I learned something else through industry connections. 10 years ago, Trevor had been a decent engineer himself, not brilliant but competent. It was 5 years of corporate politics and the pressure to move up or move out that had turned him into what I'd seen. The system had rewarded his presentations over programming, his networking over algorithms. That didn't excuse what he'd done to me, but it made it more complicated than simple good versus evil. Meanwhile, the industry started digging deeper. Turns out, most of Trevor's previous innovations at other companies had similar patterns. Charismatic presentations, vague technical details, and a trail of overworked engineers who'd left shortly after his arrival. Truckflow struggled for 8 months before being acquired by a larger firm at 30% of its previous valuation. Turns out, when you fire the only person who understands your core technology, things fall apart pretty quickly. Their remaining engineers couldn't maintain the systems I'd built. Performance dropped, error rates spiked, clients complained. First day at my new job, I walked into a conference room with 22 engineers waiting to meet their new principal architect. Smart people, real developers, the kind of team I'd always wanted to work with. No politics, no stolen credit, just people who cared about building great systems. "I'm Derek," I said. No PowerPoint, no corporate introduction. I built the routing systems that truck flow used to run on. Now we're going to build something better. But leading a team of 22 engineers turned out harder than writing algorithms. The first few months, I'd wake up at 3 a.m. wondering if I was really qualified for the title principal architect or if I was just another imposter who'd gotten lucky. Rachel noticed my struggle during our monthly one-on-ones. "You're trying to prove you deserve to be here," she said. "You already proved that. Now you need to learn how to lead." She was right. I'd spent 8 years working alone, building systems in isolation, learning to delegate, to trust other people's code, to guide without micromanaging. Those were different skills entirely. We spent the next 6 months building exactly what I'd promised: clean code, smart architecture, innovative solutions to problems I'd been thinking about for years. My corner office overlooked downtown Denver with mountains visible in the distance. Real leadership, real recognition, real compensation. The day we launched our new platform, it outperformed TruckFlow's old system by 17% across every major metric. Our clients started seeing immediate improvements. Word spread fast in an industry where performance gains like that are front-page news in trade publications. But success came with complications I hadn't anticipated. 3 months after TruckFlow's acquisition, I ran into Mike Kowalski at a Starbucks near downtown. Mike had worked in accounting for 12 years. Good guy. 2 kids in high school, coached Little League on weekends. Always brought homemade cookies to office birthday parties. "I don't blame you, Derek," he said, stirring his coffee with hands that looked older than I remembered. Trevor had it coming, but the severance package was pretty thin when they shut down our division. "I found work, but it's a 30% pay cut." He paused, looking out the window. My oldest was looking at Colorado School of Mines for engineering. "Now we're talking community college first." I bought his coffee and walked away wondering if there had been another way. 37 people had lost their jobs when TruckFlow collapsed. Mike was just one face among many who'd been collateral damage in my pursuit of justice, which is why I started a small scholarship fund for TruckFlow families that year. It wasn't much, but Mike's son got one of the first grants. That night, Emma called from college. "Dad, my CS professor mentioned your name in class today. Good things, I hope. He called you controversial but brilliant. Said the TruckFlow situation was a masterclass in intellectual property protection." A pause. "What do you think about all that?" "I think," she said slowly, "I'm proud you finally stood up for yourself, but I also think about all those people who lost their jobs. Was there really no other way?" Smart kid. She'd inherited my problem-solving instincts, just applied them to ethical questions I was still wrestling with. The patent office completed their review 8 months later. 6 algorithms, all listing me as sole inventor. The settlement from TruckFlow's bankruptcy proceedings came after 2 years of legal battles. $2, $3 million, enough to help with college funds and finally give me some financial breathing room, but not the life-changing windfall the headlines had suggested. 6 months later, I heard Trevor had taken a senior engineering role at a smaller firm, back to hands-on technical work. Maybe the fall had reminded him why he became an engineer in the first place. Jake started telling his robotics teammates that his dad was the guy who'd built the algorithms they were learning about in their computer science classes. Emma switched her major from business to computer science, inspired by watching her father finally get recognition for his work. The real payoff came on a Tuesday evening in November. I was working late in my office, reviewing code from my team, looking out at the Denver skyline and thinking about how different my life had become. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Dad, saw the article about you in Tech Weekly. My professor talked about constraint optimization in logistics and mentioned your work." I told everyone that's my dad. "I'm proud of you, but I'm also glad you found a way forward that doesn't keep destroying lives. That matters too." I set the phone down and leaned back in my chair. Corner office, brilliant team, industry recognition, financial security. Kids who were proud to tell their friends what their father did for a living. But also the knowledge that Mike's son was starting at community college instead of Colorado School of Mines. That 37 families had been disrupted by my actions, however justified they might have been. The TruckFlow case became a Harvard Business School study on intellectual property and engineering ethics. At least some good came from the mess. Trevor was probably somewhere trying to rebuild a career and a marriage that my pursuit of justice had helped destroy. The system had failed him too, in its way, turning a decent engineer into someone who felt he had to steal credit to succeed. Sometimes the best revenge is being undeniably good at what you do. But the older I get, the more I understand that even justified revenge has consequences for people who never deserve them. Success tastes sweeter when you earn it honestly, But wisdom means recognizing that in the real world, justice always comes with collateral damage. The truth spoke for itself. I just had to live with everything it said. If this story hit home for you, give it a like. And subscribe if you want more stories like this. I post new ones daily.